ladies. Welcome back to deLight, and this is our first recording for 2021. It's lovely to have you guys here, and we miss all the other ladies, but they will join the next time. So we decided to kick off this year speaking about communication, and it's such a deep topic that can touch so many aspects and relationships that we have, that we decided we're just going to spread it over a few weeks. So we're just going to start today just by sharing a bit of our testimonies of things that we've come across and realized and learned. And then we're going to take it a bit deeper going on next week. So we're going to start off with Susanne, and then we're going to add after her.
Thank you, Monique. Excited for us to be back again for this year. Yes, I think it's, like you said, it's quite a vast topic that we're moving into with communication, and then also tonight a little bit about conflict management, which I think is a key area when it comes to communication. And I think it's something that each of us can truly say we struggle with, maybe even on a daily basis, whether it's conflict with those around us or whether it's inner conflict, struggling within ourselves with certain things. So maybe just to keep it short, I think it would be good, like you said, maybe a testimony, just something short about ourselves, and maybe an area where we've discovered some things about conflict management that has always become a wisdom to us, or something that we now can live by and do things differently by. And I think also some biblical principles, just to see what the word says about this, and how God is giving us such great wisdom in his word about how to handle this very difficult topic. So shortly, just a little bit about myself. I think for me, the greatest area where I have not really discovered, but had to negotiate conflict maybe was within marriage. I think it's something that all married couples have to face at some time or another. And I think depending on how different our personality types and our temperaments and also our love languages are from each other, there tends to be a lot of conflict later on, as we discover that, wow, this person doesn't really see the way that I do, or isn't necessarily open to the change that I was, I'm hoping that they would be open to. And I mean, you can say many more things about that. But for me and my husband, I think the main thing is I'm very relationally oriented. I'm very person oriented, and he is much more logical, rational minded. And this used to be something that we had so many just very, very unnecessary fights about, because we would just not understand each other correctly. We would just be communicating in different ways, and in the end miss each other. And I think what happens is we know this is not all the enemy. This is our human selves, and we need to know more about ourselves and gain self-knowledge in order to to just work better with this. But I think the main thing is when we don't understand each other, and when there's no space for accommodating one another, it's then that the enemy has the opportunity to come in and cause strife, which the word actually warns about. So for us, we had to really work at hearing each other, to hear what the other person is saying, because I would many times jump to the conclusion that he's just not open to my emotional input about the situation, or that he would just not be sensitive enough within a certain situation, thinking about others, but rather looking at how he would want to do it. And it would seem selfish to me, and I would really get so upset about it, but not be thinking about what I'm actually expecting of him, who is not emotion driven and who is not relationally driven. And I would really have a bit of a difficulty seeing those blind spots that I had. So this is something that, although we don't have a massive testimony about it, it is something that I think we've to a great extent had time to work through. And we've almost come to a place where we can identify when there's a trigger for that type of situation where we will miscommunicate or miss each other. And we would almost in a very compassionate way make each other just see that and say, okay, this is where I'm missing you now here, or do you hear what I'm saying? Just making sure the other person hears our heart, each other's hearts. So in short, that I think is the testimony for me surrounding the difficulties that we've had in terms of conflict management. And then I think some of the truths that I've come to know, and this is truly by trial and error and through having to learn it the hard way, but is that if we look at Hebrews 12, verse 14 to 15, it says, strive for peace with everyone and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. So God, he's a God of peace. He's a God of righteousness, and he's a God who's willing to not just say, okay, shush, you know, he's going to handle the situation, but he expects of us to pursue peace and to be the peacemakers. And so I think that's something that, although I am inherently someone who's after peace, I would many times be someone who would not want to go into the conflict. I would rather say, I'm not going to go there, which is also not necessarily the healthy way of doing it. But to realize that I need to strive to conclude a situation and to bring peace about in that situation. Then the next thing for me is to, like I said, Nana, to hear each other's hearts and to hear first and to then speak. And these seem like such simple principles when we speak about them. They almost sound too easy, but wait until you get into that heated moment where you want to make your point and you want to get your point across, to then say, okay, I'm going to stand still and listen, and then I'll speak later if God permits me to speak now. Otherwise, I'll have to think on this and speak later, which is also something that I used to struggle with because I'm emotional. I would many times tend to lean on my emotions to set the way for how I'm going to react in a certain situation, which is not the clever thing to do. And which is not the wise thing to do. As we know, and as we've spoken about before about emotions, they're not always stable, and they're not always rational. And we need to be very, very sensitive for what the Holy Spirit is saying in a certain moment. And I think the other thing that I realized is our attitude when we go into a conflict situation. And this is something that I try to be, what would we say in English? I'm trying to think what the English word is now, but to just be present and know what my attitude is. So why am I going into this, and what is it that I want from this? Because if it is in a pessimistic or in a angry or vindictive attitude that I have, then I must step away. I must let God search my heart, and I must come back to this. If my attitude is one of building and resolving and bringing restoration, then I know I'm healthy to go into this situation. So I think it's important that when we get into a conflict situation, although we many times tend to pray afterwards, we need to pray. We need to pray beforehand and say, Father, help me now. Help me to really speak later and first listen and check my attitude. And I think the last thing is just to tame our tongues. The word so many times speaks about the danger of the tongue and how easily we can say something that we can't take back again. And this is something that we've had to, well, especially myself, has really had to learn the hard way. Having regrets afterwards about saying something within a heated discussion and in a moment, and then later realizing that I've done so much hurt and said so many things that you can't take back. You can't restore them. Only God can, in time, restore those relationships. So I think, for me, that's the main things. There's many scriptures in the Word about conflict. One of the things that's come up with me now is just how serious God is about conflict within a relationship, whether it's marriage or family relationships or work relationships. He says, if you come to the altar, if you come to bring an offering and you know that there's something between yourself and a brother, first go and sort that out and then come and bring your offering. He's a God who is truly interested in our relationships, because he knows our hearts can't be in right standing before him if it's not in right standing before those that we are in a conflict situation with. And so whether there's necessarily going to come a resolve, that's not dependent always on us. I think that God expects of us to take the first step, to go out, to try and resolve, to forgive where we can forgive and where that is always an option. and then to come to him and discuss it with him and ask him to bring the wisdom and the clarity and the restoration where that needs to come. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's what I think.
Thank you, Susan. So this also reminds me of the section in the word that it says, blessed are the peacemakers, involves peacemaking, which requires often to bring something and put it on the table and bring it into the light. And for me, I'm a conflict avoider in nature. And it's very difficult for me to really be honest and put things on the table and confront someone or enter into a conflict situation. But it's amazing how through life you get exposed to things and you realize that for things to change, we can't just shove them down and think things will change on their own. We need to be open and to make ourselves vulnerable to actually speak about things. I think the enemy has tried with the strategy so hard to isolate us and keep us isolated. And that's the thing that happens when we get uncomfortable in situations and communication gets tough and there's a lot of conflict, we tend to withdraw. And that's a very, it's not a safe space to be in. The things that the enemy then puts into our mind is like we ourselves, out of our own nature, want to complete an entire story of how we see things, and we actually have 3-4 scenarios in our head that's actually playing out, and the enemy has a field day with us because we have so many things that we assume, and it just keeps us away from the truth. And it brings us to a place where we often start keeping track or record of wrongs that other people are doing towards us, and we're just building a case against this person. But something that is good, it's a good thing to talk things out. And I think often in the social media world people are living in, it's easy to put things on there and to sort someone out and tune someone. But I think when you're in your house and it's you and the people you are real with and that you live with, often it's difficult to sort out things and see things through. But if a relationship is worth it to you, you will do whatever needs to be done to rectify it and to reconcile and to sort things out. So something that I wanted to add with when Susan said like that your tongue can cause so much harm, and that often you say things when you are upset that you can't take back. And when me and my husband, we were working in a country in Africa for a while, and the conditions in which we worked were really tough, and the hours of work and the pressure that was just accompanying all of this. So we really argued a lot, like almost every day. And also I am emotional, thinking about the people, and he's task orientated, wanting to get the job done. So we also had to like find a balance between how to include the people aspect, but also get the job done. And but the one time I was so angry, and I said the most dreadful things to my husband. And I experienced while walking home that the Lord asked me, like, if Sydney is the most important person in your life, the one person that you don't want to live without, why are you not hesitant, or why aren't you holding back on not saying the worst things that you can to him? And why are you treating him as if he will never leave you? And it was a tough thing for me to realize, like, if he's the person that I love the most, why am I hurting him so much with what I'm saying? And without even regarding it as, I'm just thinking, oh, he'll get over it and everything will be fine tomorrow again. And the Holy Spirit just made me aware that I cannot say whatever I want and expect that I will not cause him hurt or harm to a point where it really damages him and damages our relationship. So I need to be accountable in what I say and how I say it, because I can't say he's the person I love the most when I treat him in a way that contradicts that entirely. So something I also just want to mention is that people listen through a funnel of their own emotions and history and background and experiences. So when we communicate with people, they listen through ears and a funnel that whatever you say is filtered through that, and then they get the message. And often that filter is distorted and filled with lies and hurt and things from the past, voices and stuff that happened, that it speaks so loud that even if you try to sort something out in a calm manner, or if you want to give a compliment or just want to, you know, build relationship with someone, they immediately hear it in a different light. And I think we just need to be aware that people listen through their own hurt and past experiences. So if they don't receive your message the way you intended it, be aware that it might be a struggle for them to really hear what you're saying, and ask the Holy Spirit, you know, to quiet those voices and those misperceptions and the lies that we often, you know, believe about ourselves and about the people around us, so that the Holy Spirit can come and he can cut through bone and marrow into the intents of our hearts, you know, to bring truth there. So that's also something we can touch on in more detail in the weeks to come. And and I think also to be aware of that when we are in a conflict situation and the other person, you know, has maybe a bit of an outburst or a defensive approach or whatever, that if we are uncomfortable and something is hitting a nerve, we often react from either a place of fear or of anger or of sadness or of guilt or shame. So the reason why we are reacting in a way that we don't want to, but it's just coming out, is because it's hitting one of those nerves. And I think for your partner or the other person in the relationship, your mom, your dad, your children or whatever, it's good to take a step back when that happens and to say, okay, identify, where is this coming from? Why is this hitting such a big nerve for me? And then to make the other person aware that, you know, this is why it's difficult for me. It's not that I'm angry at you or I don't want to overact, but this is something that for me is a difficult thing. So for example, just a stupid example, like if I go to the shop and I buy clothes and I come back, I feel like I need to hide the packets so that my husband, that he doesn't see the packets. And the reason why I do that has nothing to do with him. He has never complained with me or asked me, you know, why are you buying something, or what did you buy now? He's never done that to me ever. But in our house, that was a big issue when we were growing up, like having clothing accounts, and then like my dad not being aware of it. And then, but my mom knows that we need new clothes, but there's no other money to do it. So then she goes and she buys something on the account. And then my dad is upset, you know, and it was this thing over and over and over and over. So me reacting like that has nothing to do with him. So when I come home and I want to, or I'm assuming he's going to say something already, and then I'll be rude and say, yes, I did buy something. You want to say something or whatever, but it doesn't have anything to do with him. It's to do with me and with the way I grew up, and I have a fear, you know, that I'm going to be in trouble now. And so to understand why we are reacting the way we are, and then to ask the Lord, you know, to give us a new way, a different way of reacting. He's not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. And so it's good if you are aware of something. It's good because then you can start doing something about it. So I think that is what I wanted to share. And I think, so I'm going to give over to you, Nita, now.
Okay, when I was preparing for this, I actually had to it was a bit overwhelming, and I had to take a step back, and I had to think about, because communication, conflict, it's such a reality, it's such a part of our relationships. It makes or breaks the relationship, and it's always going to be there. And it's easy. We always say that we know that our relationship with God needs to be firm first, and then that will reflect in our relationships. But I think it's easy to fool ourselves when we speak about our relationship with God. It's easy to say, I'm doing his will, I'm loving him. But when it comes to your husband, to family, to those things, you can't fool it because you're in that situation. You can fool yourself and think you are busy with God's work, think you are busy with his will, but actually you're just doing your own thing. But once you apply that on earth, in this relationship, it actually causes conflict. And I think the most conflict, when I stepped back, I realized that the most was about me. It was about me not being able to die in myself. It was all about offense, taking offenses for things. And I had to ask myself, like Monique said, why? Why am I reacting this way? What am I fighting for? Am I fighting for myself and my point and my opinion and my ways? Or am I fighting for God's kingdom? Am I fighting for his will to be done? So for me, the most important thing, and it's something I actually feel that this is the beginning of everything, is God's principles. Because if we start living according to God's principles, we can avoid a lot of problems in life. And the principles from God, if we can learn those principles, we won't always have to, and don't take it the wrong way, but we don't always have to, we then have to pray about it, because we will already have his revealed will. We will know what his will is. We will know what his ways are. And the big thing with principles is you need the knowledge of his principles. We need the knowledge. We need to know God's principles. And then we also need to understand these principles. But it's not enough to know it and to understand it. We need to be obedient. And I think that's the biggest part where we struggle. And that causes miscommunication. That causes conflict in our lives, because we've read the principles. We understand the principles. It's like all of we've said. We know we need to be peacemakers. We know we need to do everything out of love. We know we need to die in ourselves. But are we obedient to God first, to say, this is your will, this is your ways, and I will be subject to that. I will apply this in my relationship with my husband, with my family, because that's where we live it out. That's where we show God that we actually do love him, that we actually do follow his principles by applying it. And that's the most important thing for me, because we can speak forever and ever, but we need to learn the principles. We need to understand the principles. We need to be obedient, and we need to start applying it. And that's the testimony from my life, that lately I have realized that every time that I have applied the principles to a communication, to a conflict situation, it always works. It never fails. Every time I've been disobedient, I didn't listen to the Holy Spirit. Every time I did my own thing, it just blew up. It was just a disaster. And it's like we say, then the hurt is done, the words are spoken, and you can never take it back. But one thing that I've realized is we need to get back to the principles, because principles simplify our life. Principles protects our life. It protects us. If you think about the laws of the country, it's not there for someone else. It's there to protect you. And when we violate those principles, when we violate the laws of our country, it causes us harm. It doesn't always necessarily cause other people harm. If you drive over the speed limit and you get a ticket, the harm is done to you, to nobody else. And it's the same in our communication and conflict situations, in our relationships. When we violate God's principles, when we don't follow it, we cause harm to ourselves. We cause harms to the ones that we love, the ones that we actually want to protect. So, and I heard someone say something, and it actually touched me so much. He said that God is the creator of all these things. He's the creator of relationships. He's the creator of parenthood. He's the creator of family. So he's the one that has written the manual of all these things. So if you want to know how these things work, it's very easy. Just go and read the manual. And if you want these things to be successful, just go and read the manual. And he actually had this very simple explanation. He talked about a smartphone. He said all of us have smartphones. We have hundreds and hundreds of applications and things that it can do, but we don't fully use it. We use 6 applications because we've never read the manual. So we've paid thousands and thousands of rands. We've invested so much in this smartphone, and we use 6 functions where there's actually a whole lot more that it can offer. And it's the same in our relationships. Once we read the manual, once we get to God's principles, it will become life to us. It will become wonderful to us. It will become something that we embrace. We will know what to do, and it will become so much richer. That's the thing. Once you have read the manual, it's so rich. You can use all of it, and you can apply all of it, and it actually becomes worth the money. So I think the biggest thing is we need to really start investing in learning the principles and applying the principles. So that's my wrap up of this. Yeah.
And in the following weeks, we can specify, a few of those principles. We can break it down practically for you guys, and we can dig deeper. So also I want to encourage you, if you're listening to this and you have any questions or things that you would love us to speak about concerning communication, relationships, how to handle conflict. If you have any questions, please pop it in the comments, and then we can respond to those and include it when we have our next discussion. So thank you so much, ladies. This is our introduction, and then we will break it down going forward over the next few weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.